Continuation of Chapter 7. Third part, the modern liberties. First liberty, freedom of worship. In the third part of his encyclical, Leo XIII exposes the different kinds of freedoms that are vaunted nowadays as the conquests of our era. Quote, "To make this more evident, the growth of liberty ascribed to our age must be considered apart in its various details." End quote. The first is the freedom of religions. Quote, "Let us examine that liberty in individuals which is opposed to the virtue of religion, namely, the liberty of worship, as it is called. This is based on the principle that every man is free to profess, as he may choose, any religion or none." End quote. This is the erroneous principle of religious indifferentism. It denies either the obligation to worship God, or else that one religion must be preferred to another. The Pope refuses this error. Quote, "But assuredly, of all the duties which man has to fulfill, that, without doubt, is the chiefest and holiest which commands him to worship God with devotion and piety. Religion rules and tempers all virtues. And if it be asked which of the many conflicting religions it is necessary to adopt, reason and the natural law unhesitatingly tell us to practice that one which God enjoins, and which men can easily recognize by certain exterior notes, whereby divine providence has willed that it should be distinguished." End quote. Sanctity, mark of the divinity of the Church. Among the four marks or notes by which the Catholic Church is recognizable as the one true religion, the most evident sign of the divinity of the Catholic Church is holiness. That is why in the measure that holiness disappears, the proof of the divinity of the Church fades. The clergy and the virtue of celibacy of the priests and religious congregations are what chiefly manifest this holiness. Without that, it is difficult to realize that the Catholic religion is the one true one. But today, the numbers of priests and religious and nuns are diminishing, and those who remain no longer even wear an exterior sign of their belonging to God, of their oblation to God. Formerly, when in town one would cross the path of a priest or religious, the churches were vibrant, everything was well ordered, the Blessed Sacrament was manifestly present, one knelt. Anyone could see these things. Such testimonials were found throughout Europe. In the hospitals and clinics, the Little Sisters of the Poor took care of the old people. The Sisters of the Assumption visited the families of the sick. Now, the religious have practically been banished. The hospital has become the occupation of laymen, and let no one interfere. Yet there is a great difference between a sister who helps the sick to bear their sufferings, and who shows true charity, and a simple nurse who can be very good, very gentle, but who cannot have, in general, this religious character, this note of charity. When her shift is over, the nurse leaves. The religious does not. She remains beside the patient at night if need be. This total devotion to the sick profoundly permeated the atmosphere of the hospitals and clinics. They made the sisters go, and often it was the priests of Catholic action who told them, quote, "You are taking bread out of the mouths of the nurses," end quote. And so the vocations of the hospitaller religious were ruined. The contemplative life has also disappeared. It is better to devote oneself to action, isn't it? And so they broke the grills and the sisters came out of their cloister. There is no more contemplative life. And the result? No more vocations. What priests have done and said since the council in order to destroy the religious life and thus the sanctity of the Church is unimaginable. And this is without counting the priests who have married and the worker priests. How can people whose faith is unsteady still be encouraged to believe that the Catholic religion is the one true one? They hear Protestants speak, who are very respectable, deaconesses who are very devoted, and even Muslims who are more pious than we. They do not know what lies behind the Islamic mask, the enslavement of the woman, and the immorality of Islam. But they lose their faith and no longer step into a church. Hence the importance of the holiness of the Church, this visible sign that, as Pope Leo XIII says, makes her recognizable. The duty of the state in regard to religion. Let's continue the reading. Quote, "This kind of liberty, if considered in relation to the state, clearly implies that there is no reason why the state should offer any homage to God, or should desire any public recognition of him, that no one form of worship is to be preferred to another, but that all stand on an equal footing, no account being taken of the religion of the people, even if they profess the Catholic faith. But to justify this, it must needs be taken as true that the state has no duties towards God." End quote. This is, then, the religious indifferentism of the state. How denatured it is that so many should hold that men united in society have no duties towards God, as if they did not have any individually. Quote, "Wherefore, civil society must acknowledge God as its founder and parent, and must obey and reverence his power and authority." End quote. It is, then, a duty of the civil society to worship God, because, like the family, it is a creature of God. The state itself, the civil authority, owes public worship to God, who is its author. And it is here that Leo XIII specifies once again what religion is meant. Quote, "Since, then, the profession of one religion is necessary in the state, that religion must be professed which alone is true, and which can be recognized without difficulty, especially in Catholic states, because the marks of truth are, as it were, engraven upon it. This religion, therefore, the rulers of the state must preserve and protect, if they would provide, as they should do, with prudence and usefulness for the good of the community." End quote.